We're looking at some much colder air dropping into the United States, not just through the rest of this weekend and next weekend, but also next week as we watch a piece of cold air break off from the polar vortex, which is spinning up here across the North Pole, and that is slated to drop south as we head into next week. And you can see that really core of cold air here across southern parts of Canada as we head into the 9th and the 10th, and some of that, again, trying to show signs that it continues to break off in that time frame. The models have been showing this now for days and days, so you have to look at this and go, all right, there may be something to this. Polar vortex. I remember when those words really started to get some media hype about 10 years ago. You probably remember that as well. In some ways, I refused to even say it on television because people would freak out and they thought they could go outside and look at the polar vortex coming down. It's nothing like that. It's just a lobe of cold air that's rotating around the North Pole. It's not a new term or a new feature on the planet we live, but we do get influence from it, and a lot of times it's the cold air, and it's that permanent feature around the North Pole that sometimes keeps that cold air locked up as that polar vortex strengthens. Sometimes it weakens, which is what we're seeing, and signs of that cold air and those chunks, those lobes of cold air break off and they spin south. And that's what I think we're going to see heading into next week. And that's also what might give us an unusual chance for snow in places that don't normally see snow. If you're new to the channel, one thing that I promise, and I don't try to hype the weather. What's the point, right? To get you excited, then just to burn you and let you down. So I try to give you both sides of it. If you're reading into this going, oh my gosh, he said it's going to snow in a week and a half across South Carolina. I'm not. Is there a chance? Absolutely. Was there a chance this week? No. There really wasn't even last week either. And, that's something that I try to dig into. In this video, we're going to talk about where some snow may be in the next couple of days, also beyond that into next week, which is much more uncertain. And I already see the models being posted across social media platforms, folks going, we're back in the game, and then we're out. And then we're back in the game for snow, and then we're not. This back and forth is going to continue for the next couple of days. If anything, it's going to intensify as the weather models try to get a grapple on this cold air and how it's going to interact with our weather across the lower 48. And when I look at long-range snow potential, I like to look at the ensemble outlook. This is the chance of seeing a snow greater than 1 inch, taking you out through Sunday the 12th. And just to emphasize, this purple that you're seeing, this is a 10 to 20% chance. The blue here is at about a 20 to 30% chance. So your odds of seeing a snow pretty far to the south, even at this point, while you are seeing some huge storms blowing up on some of the individual models, the consensus this far out is still really, really low. Could it happen? Absolutely. And I might get a vacation to Key West next week. It certainly isn't impossible. I've got the airline miles, got the vacation time stacked up. I'm probably not going to go, though. All right, sorry, that's a bad analogy. I think maybe the chances for snow in some areas may be much greater than that. All right, let's talk about the short term, where we are confident. We've got this low pressure area moving through parts of the Ohio Valley, through Illinois, Indiana. It's going to bring some rain as we head into today. Tonight, that moves into the northeast, and then it brings some snow as far south as the Appalachians. And then snow starts to pick up around the Great Lakes. That lake effect snow will get really intense. We're going to dive into the region by region outlook in just a moment, but let's take these global models out pretty far. This is the European operational run. This would show you those vacations to Key West, if you will, if you're hoping for snow, especially the further south you go. The snow across the northeast, I don't think this is a vacation, right? We've got the snow going here. Across the west, we've got the snow here as well, moving back into parts of Idaho, Wyoming, Montana. Also of note, there's a high avalanche risk across parts of Utah where there are avalanche warnings right now that are in effect. So if you're in the backcountry, be careful. We've had a lot of snow here, and those conditions exist. Maybe not just here, but even in other areas too. More snow starting to build back here up across northern parts of the U.S., right along the U.S.-Canadian border, and then the lake effect continues here. High pressure keeping us dry across the southeast, also across the plains, and looking pretty nice here overall. Some showers along the Gulf Coast as we head toward Friday. That lake effect will continue over the next several days, and then this is a potent storm that moves into the west coast first, and this will be our big winter storm that we're tracking heading into next week. It'll first start to be felt on Saturday, which I'm more excited about this storm as far as forecasting goes as we head into Friday and Saturday, because at that point, our weather balloons, not my weather balloons, but National Weather Service, NOAA, they'll start sending weather balloons up, sampling the atmosphere as this energy moves ashore. Now, our numerical weather prediction models, which use math, which use numbers that get inputted from these weather balloons, well, they get better because they have better data. And the better the data, the better the the outcome for the forecast. So these models are trying to grapple with what's going on for something that's way offshore. Once we get into next week, this will be pretty interesting, and I think maybe a better forecast. But here's a broad outlook. I think either way, we've got a storm that's going to move across the country this way. It's going to bring a mix of snow, sleet, freezing rain, and really that mix would be on the southern side of wherever this track goes, and then to the south, some plain rain, and maybe even some severe weather. It's still a little too early to talk about those details just yet, but this gives you an idea of how this thing may play out as we head into the upcoming weekend. This would put snow into Kansas City, maybe some ice, sleet, freezing rain also for central Missouri into northern Missouri, into Iowa. It looks like mostly snow. The exact track of this will be pinned down, but I've seen this the last couple of model runs, the idea that your low is moving here, you've got your cold front swinging through the south, you've got a warm front doing this weird thing like this because you've got some cold air damming here on the east face of the mountains, and then as that warm air overrides that cold air, there's that chilly air right here at the surface being reinforced by high pressure to the north. That cold air is much more stubborn and it's much more dense, so it hangs on longer. As your low wraps up here, that warm air that's getting fed into this storm changes things over to rain. It looks to me like that anyway, across the Ohio Valley, right along the river. And now you get what we call Miller B storm. Once it moves here into the Ohio Valley, typically your low transitions somewhere here off the Capes of Virginia, off of North Carolina, or sometimes even into the Northeast. Either way, that energy, that surface low, starts to develop here versus back to the west. And now you see that moving to the Northeast. Now, some of the models are suppressing this, which makes sense. If you had a low up here, it's not going to let it go north. It's going to probably just go out to sea. So then we turn cold behind that, and this could be that really cold air as that lobe of your polar vortex, if you will, drops to the south. This is a very strong area of surface high pressure. Actually, that's what we're dealing with. That cold air is really dense and heavy, and it's pushing down on the surface. So high pressure getting close to 1050 here. We're at 1047 as it moves across Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and then that cold air now pushing all the way down into Texas, and some of the models picking up on that wintry precipitation right along the Gulf Coast. Again, it's one of those reasons when I go back to the beginning of this video that I say you're not completely out of the game for some snow as that cold air pushes way to the south in unusual areas. Tracking any individual storm this far out will drive you up the wall, so don't do it. Let's talk about the potential though, and I think it's there. My mind hasn't changed at all on that. Just for kicks, this is the GFS moving through the weekend. There's your storm moving across the country. It looks a little different than the European, which had a much stronger low. So the models are still grappling with an idea of what's going to happen 6 days from now. How strong will this low be? This will ultimately affect the next storm upstream. The models do a much better job with large-scale features like this cold air that's moving in behind this. It's just the individual lobes of energy that kind of get pushed around this and the storms that they have a hard time with, and that's some of the most impactful parts of the weather, right? So anyway, it does turn cold. I think we got that cold air moving south into Texas, and then look, if something develops on the back end of this, that's why you could see snow in unusual areas. I don't know that we get snow in Jacksonville, but the fact, just the mere fact the models are printing that, not just 1 day, not just 2 days now, but for almost 4, 5, 6 days in a row. I mean, this tells you something. Pay attention to this time frame. I'm not saying it's going to snow in Jacksonville, and it's just not going to snow in Tampa. I mean, I had someone ask, that's not going to snow in Tampa, and it's not going to snow in Orlando. Watch me eat my words. It's going to get cold, though, as we head into the 10th, the 11th, the 12th. This could push your freeze pretty far to the south as we enter this time period, too, which could really cause some problems. And look, more energy back here that could move toward the plains and further east and cause more issues. Let's dig into some regional details. We're going to go in the short term here. We're not going really far out, but we've got your snow moving through parts of Nebraska, Iowa, into the Great Lakes region as we head into this afternoon and this evening. That moves east pretty quickly, and then high pressure builds in. So we're dry as we head into the first day of the new year. Seasonably cold, though, and then we're watching that moisture increase across parts of Texas as we head through Friday. But overall, across the plains, most of this week looking pretty good. There's your snow amounts. It'll be relatively light here across Nebraska, Iowa, into Illinois and Indiana, and then more snow back here across the Rockies. Some of this could be heavy too, especially into parts of Wyoming and Colorado toward the Great Lakes. Low pressure moving into southern Ontario. It's going to bring some snow here. Some of this could get a little heavy, and now winds turn in from the west. So we've got the lake effect snow going again across Michigan, and some upslope snow too into parts of West Virginia, western Maryland, southern parts of Pennsylvania. There's winter storm warnings out now into the mountains of West Virginia, where there could be some really heavy snow here, in some places 5 to 10 inches. Also, we're going to get some big lake effect snow too, with lake effect snow warnings, winter storm watches in effect. Lake effect snow warnings are going right now for Erie and Crawford counties, where there could be 10 to 20 inches. Through the weekend, some of these places could see up to 2 to 3 feet of snow. There's also watches downwind of Lake Ontario, Wayne, Cuyahoga, Oswego, Jefferson, Lewis counties, the Tug Hill Plateau region. You're going to see snow here. On downwind of Erie, we're going to see that heavy snow near Erie, Pennsylvania, all the way back to Cleveland. So right along the lake, that snow could get heavy. And there could even be a streak of some light snow as we head toward Thursday and Friday, moving here out of Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, maybe even into parts of Kentucky, back into the southern Appalachians here with some light snow accumulations by the end of the week. Not a lot of snow, at least through the next 24 hours, but we'll really start to pick that up and look here into the mountains of West Virginia. We've talked about that. And then downwind of all the lakes here, even into parts of Ontario, the UP of Michigan. There could be some decent accumulations here for places like Elmira over to Gaylord. Lesser amounts over towards Traverse City, although we are going to see it. And then further south across Michigan, you're going to get some snow down towards Grand Rapids. Now, most of this snow across southern Michigan is actually falling today through Wednesday, as you can see as we time some of this out. And then there comes the lake effect snow on top of it. There's that big snow here downwind of Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, and then some heavy snow too for the Green and White Mountains into Maine as low pressure moves north of you guys. That wind will really start to pick up out of the northwest, and the snow will be going. And look at that snow band here again off of Lake Ontario. Some of that could continue to be really heavy for the Tug Hill Plateau, and there's a closer look at the snow across the far northeast as we head through Friday. Temperatures across the east and the south on the way down. This is taking you through the first day of the new year. Highs on Wednesday, struggling to get above freezing in many areas. To the south we go. Low pressure moving to the north. We've talked about that. The influence here will be just a few showers across the Carolinas, maybe some snow across the southern Appalachians. And then we dry out here as high pressure builds in through Thursday. And into Friday, we start to see this snow here up across the southern Appalachians, and then maybe some rain developing here from Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama. Just a few light showers on the way. And now we're watching our next big winter weather maker. Again, I'm just watching this for the ice potential. I think that's a problem. And then on the north side of that, some heavy snow too. One has to wonder, if your trough axis is like this, you can kind of see how it has a bit of a negative tilt. Does that lead to severe weather again across Dixie Alley in the south? I hope not, but that's something to keep an eye on. And then low pressure on the European, much stronger than the GFS, brings that wintry mix into the nation's capital, into the Commonwealth of Virginia, the mountain state of West Virginia, back into the Buckeye State. We've got snow here. I don't know. I mean, come on. We may end up with more mixed precip here with the GFS trying to bring that rain a little bit further to the north. Let's wait and see on that. And then behind that, the shenanigans. Okay. Across the west, which I ignore all the time. I don't ignore the west. I don't. Okay. If I do, I'm sorry if you live here. It's tough to dig into every single part of the country, but let's talk about what's going on here. We've got the rain and the snow moving into the Pacific Northwest. Some snow back into Northern California too. Nothing like what we've seen. And we've seen much bigger storms. For you guys, this is light work. You're going, this is nothing, no big deal. But we do have some precipitation on the way through Wednesday. Cold Arctic high pressure building to the east here, east of the mountains, and it's really not going to dig into the Pacific Northwest. High pressure starts to set up here across the Rockies, and your storm track kind of moving to the northwest here. So that keeps us dry across the Four Corners states, Southern California. Some heavier rain and snow, though, on the way by the end of the week. For Northern California, the Cascades, and some of this could actually bring some freezing rain into the Columbia River Gorge. Let's watch this. I don't know that it does, but and also into eastern parts of Oregon and Washington as that cold air gets trapped at the lower elevations. Snow into the Sierra as we head into Friday and Saturday. That starts to pick up, and then your storm moves across the mountains, and then you start to see your lee side low develop, and then boom, it moves east and just causes all the headaches here across the west. We start to calm down a little bit, not across the Pacific Northwest. We're going to keep the moisture coming in here, and you may get a bit of a break early next week. Okay, snow totals here. Nothing again compared to what we've seen. We've had feet and feet of snow, it feels like, through Friday. We're only expecting maybe a foot of snow here to the Cascades. Beyond that, though, more snow will add up here, and then there comes our streak of snow east of the mountains. All right, that's all I got for now. See you next time.